first question. So consider the following statements with respect to Economic Survey 2019 and 20. And one more thing, remember the Economic Survey is for the year 2019 and 20, whereas budget is for the year 2021. Okay, always remember this because sometimes they might give year and confuse you. Because Economic Survey has to deal an year that passed. It has to give certain statistics about like GDP growth, what is the revenue, what is the expenditure that happened in the last year, and it has to give prescription or measures or suggestions that can be done in the next year. So that's why it will be 2019 and 20. Whereas budget is from financial year of 20 to 21. That is from March 1st to March 31st. Okay, so this is a cycle. So coming back to this first statement, Economic Survey 2019 and 20 was printed in color lavender to signify the new, as symbolized by the new rupees 100 note, and to depict the synthesis of old and new. Okay, this is the color of Economic Survey, the main print cover this year. And second one, the theme of this year Economic Survey is India's aspiration of 5 trillion economy through wealth creation and trust. And third one, government is constitutionally bound to present the economic survey, but not to follow the recommendations that are made in it. So here, if you are done, you might be stuck with the third one because it is saying constitutionally bound, but you might have never heard any constitutional article related to economic survey. But there is no such constitutional article for this. So that is why economic survey is not constitutionally bound. It is just an exercise that is done by the government. It's a kind of an official report that is given by government. So that is why third statement is wrong. So it is not bound to submit, not even bound to follow. So third statement is wrong here, and the first and two both are correct. So the first one important to remember, every year economic survey will be printed in an the cover page of economic survey will be printed in a color, and a specific color signifying certain importance. For example, in 1819 they have printed it on a blue color signifying blue sky thinking. That means the economic thinking should be like blue sky with limitless opportunities. And before that it was pink color signifying the importance of women and initiatives that are like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao to arrest the child sex ratio. So that way every year it comes with a unique color. So you have to know the color and the color significance. So this year it is lavender, and lavender signifies basically the mix of new and old. So basically here in this economic survey also they are presenting the ideas which are a mix of old traditional ideas and new technologies. So that is why old and new synthesis. And at the same time there was a new 100 note was submitted in 2019 with the color lavender. So that also signifies new. So that's why the first statement. And second statement is also true, that we are aiming, already we had the objective that by 2024 we need to have this $5 trillion economy. So the tool to achieve that is wealth creation, that too with the trust. So this is the theme of the economic survey this year. And one more thing, always remember, like economic survey is very, very important from both prelims and mains point of view. From prelims you will at least get one or two either on the stats data or the patterns. Like for example, if there is GDP growth, whether it is steadily decreasing or increasing, what about the investment ratio, or what about the savings ratio, like how it is from 2004 to now, is it steadily increasing or steadily decreasing? You don't need to remember the data points, but you need to know the trends. This is very important for prelims from economic survey. And for mains, usually if you read, there will be many ideas that you can use directly in your answer, like quoting as economic survey said, this is an idea, like for example, promoting entrepreneurship at the grassroots level. So this kind of information you can get by economic survey. So try to read economic survey if possible, if not the entire survey, at least the summary of each chapter. Okay, so second one, consider the following statement with respect to Thali Economics Idea presented in this year economic survey. So this is again very, very trending one, Thali Economics at that time, because this is the first time economic survey came up with a new word. And whenever it comes up with these kind of words, that gets so much attention in the media. So that's why this might be very important this year. So first statement, Thali Economics provides the criteria to estimate the poverty in India with more accuracy and sensitivity. Okay. And the second one, according to Economic Survey 2019-20, the affordability of veg thali decreased while that of non-veg thali increased in the time period of 2006 to 20. So kindly once again read and mark your answer. I guess it is very easy. So if you have already heard about this term and had a rough idea, then it is very easy to mark. So if you are done here, if you see the first statement, this is wrong option actually, because Thali economics, it might appear like it is a tool to estimate the poverty, but it is not. It is just an data statistic that is used by economic survey to show that the inflation was in control. Basically, that is the objective. So what they did, they compared this thali, you all know, right, that the plate of meals, North Indian thali and South Indian thali. So that meals cost, basically they say from 2006 to 20 it has decreased. So that way people are getting now more better nutrition. That is what economic survey want to project. And it became so controversial because no one accepts like really the thali rate has been decreased, and you can't estimate the state of entire Indian nutrition with the help of one thali. So that is a problem. So that's why the first statement is completely wrong here, whereas the second statement is also wrong, because it said that economic survey said both veg thali and non-veg thali both have actually, their affordability has decreased. Sorry, affordability has increased, both of, because affordability means the cost is decreased, affordability is increased because you are able to afford because of the incomes of the people and the less price of the thalis. So that's why both the prices have decreased, but veg thali prices decreased even more than non-veg thali. That is the only thing you have to remember. So second statement also wrong. So it is, answer is D, none of the above. So now, coming back to economic survey, there are few things like highlights. We will see that. So here the theme, as we've seen already, India's aspiration of economy of 5 trillion with the theme of wealth creation, and it has 11 chapters. So as I said, we'll try to finish this 11 chapters in 11 slides. Like in every class, we will have one slide for one chapter from tomorrow. Okay, so coming back to economic survey, so some basic details. It is basically a report, official report of the government that gives you an picture of state of economy in the past 1 year and the key challenges it expects and the solutions or measures, possibilities to overcome those challenges. So this is basically the framework or objective of economic survey, and it is prepared by economic division of Department of Economic Affairs, and usually there will be a chief economic advisor appointed. So under him this report will be prepared. So right now it is Krishnamurthy Subramaniam. Right now also he is a CEA for us. And then there is no constitutional boundness that I've already discussed. So now we'll come to the important recommendations or important observations that economic survey made this year. So first among them is wealth creation. That too, they explained this wealth creation by invisible hand and hand of trust. So what are these? Invisible hand, I guess most of you know that there is an Adam Smith economist who proposed this concept, invisible hand. So that means basically market decides the welfare of the economy. So market decides the prices and market decides the competition, everything. So economic survey is saying instead of government controlling, leave it to the market in most of the sectors. At the same time, just leaving it to the market is not enough. Along with that, we need to have certain kind of trust. This trust is something ethical and social aspects. It basically deals with ethical and philosophical dimensions. For example, when we say trust, like people should have trust on the corporate sector, and the corporate sector should be guided by certain ethical principles like providing the account deposits or accounts of its organizations promptly to the regulators, and similarly it should maintain transparency in its corporate accountability to its shareholders. So these are kind of ethical principles. For example, Tata is there. When you compare Tata with Reliance, many people say Tata is more ethical. So this kind of trust, if you build with the people, then along with the people, company will also grow. So that is how economic survey is suggesting that you can create more wealth in the country by having both market led economics and with the help of trust. So that is a thing. And here, as I said, invisible hand, there are certain tools or certain measures it suggested. For example, like giving equal opportunities for new entrants. So how you can give that? By leaving it to market. And similarly, fair competition and ease of doing business. And then trade for job creation, scaling of the business, banking sector. So these are the something that are provided by the invisible hand. Now we'll see the characteristics of the trust factor. So here trust is, economic survey projects trust is something as a public good. Like for example, education, health, like how education and health are public goods. Similarly, economic survey is saying trust is also a public good. So kindly remember this. It is saying trust as a public good, and that too it says the more you use the trust, it gets better. So that is the important thing. And important characteristics are non-excludability, non-rival consumption, non-rejectable. That is, without imposing any financial cost or greater cost on citizens, citizens should enjoy the benefits of trust, basically trusting. For example, if you are paying 15 rupees for every service to not to have corruption, then that is not public trust. So that is an example. Similarly, non-rival consumption. Marginal cost of supplying the public good to extra citizens should be zero. And then finally, non-rejectable. That is, collective supply of all citizens means it cannot be rejected. If that means, like, if there are many people, group of people for whom you are supplying certain services or goods, and if they people are expecting something, you can't take the decision against to that. So that is non-rejectable. So as I said, trust is a public good which grows more and more by repeated use, and it takes time to build. So that is about trust. So next thing, undermining markets. So it is saying government intervention has actually damaged the economy more than it helped. So that is why it is saying economic survey is suggesting government should intervene as less as possible. The example it is quoting is Essential Commodities Act. In Essential Commodities Act, basically government imposes certain restrictions on exports, on storage buffer stocks. So this is hurting the Indian farmers. So that is the uh, meaning of this suggestion. And next you have creation of jobs and growth. So here what it is saying, so to create more jobs, don't just go for only made in India. And that to make in India, don't just go for directly building everything from scratch. You can actually have more jobs by having assemblies also here. Like even if you don't produce, you can import them but assemble in India, so that you will get value enhancement and you will get at least job creation for at least that sector. So it is asking to include assembling in India into the Make in India scheme. This way, Make in India can be expanded and people can benefit. That is the next suggestion. And then you have targeting ease of doing business. We all know that in ease of doing business, we have improved drastically. Like from above 120 position, we have come to 63rd. But at the same time, on 4 or 5 parameters, we are the worst. Like we are about 160 rank out of 190 in enforcing contracts. Enforcing contracts is about, like, if you have any law and if anyone is violating, and if you go to Supreme Court or something, then it takes so many years to enforce that contract through Supreme Court. So that is very weak in India. So in enforcing contracts or in registering property, and similarly paying taxes and starting the business, all these 4 parameters, India is at the last rank. So now India has to focus on these areas to improve further. That is the other suggestion. And then about bank nationalization. So we all know, like in 1970s, we made all private banks as public sector banks, and we have now the domination of public sector banks. So economic survey is saying, well, good, but you shouldn't have many public sector banks. Like instead of having 20 odd public sector banks, have 4 or 5 which are globally dominant. So if you see right now in the top 100 list, SBI has 55th rank in the world, like in terms of capital and in terms of size. So it is saying create SBI like banks, like 4 or 5 instead of having 20 small banks. So it is basically asking to consolidate the banks. It is not asking to privatize, because they might confuse you in option. Like it might ask you saying economic survey suggests to privatize the public sector banks, but that is not the suggestion. It is saying consolidation of the banks to form, or merger of the banks to form less number of public sector banks. So that is bank nationalization. And then you have privatization and wealth creation. So here you all know about strategic disinvestment, right? So economic survey is supporting that, saying that you can have more wealth by actually privatizing certain public sector units. And the example it is quoting is BPCL. And then finally you have Thali Economics. So here it is trying to show that the affordability of Indian vegetarian thalis has improved. Like especially for vegetarian, it improved by 29%, and for non-vegetarian, it improved by 18%. That means basically it is trying to say that the economic development is more inclusive and it is helping the people to afford food, and hunger problem is being addressed, and it is not severe as being projected by other indexes. So this is something economic survey want to highlight, and these are the main highlights of economic survey. And these are the top 10 ideas that are presented in this year economic survey. We have already discussed all of this, but just we'll go through quickly. Like as I said, wealth creation benefits all. It is not something that is only for Ambani or only for Mukesh Ambani or Birlas. And next thing, market enables the wealth creation. This is the invisible hand. At the same time, you need to have invisible hand also associate with trust. So trust is a public good that gets increased with use. This is something we already seen. And then it is saying wealth creation should happen at the grassroots level. That means in the districts and in the villages, there wealth creation should happen. More and more people should come to entrepreneurship. And then you have pro business policies give equal opportunity. So government should, instead of intervening, it should not intervene, and if at all it intervenes, it should be for equal opportunities. And then you have remove anachronistic government intervention. The Essential Commodities Act, that is a main example of this. And then you have, as I said, assemble in India should be integrated into make in India. And then finally, there are some parts in ease of doing business, like enforcing contracts, like paying for the property, registering the property. These sectors we need to work even more. And then finally, banking sector subscale compared to the economy. This I said, consolidation of banks. Like we need to have 5 or 6 main banks instead of having 20 odd. And finally, you have Thali Economics, where it is saying affordability is getting increased from 2006 to 2020. So that is about economic survey main highlight. When does WHO declares a disease as public health emergency of international response? First one, if there is a risk to public health of other states through international spread of disease. Second one, if it requires a coordinated international response to curb the disease. Third one, if it has a potential to impact least developed countries' healthcare system and lives significantly. So this is again very tricky question, and yeah, kindly once again read the statements and mark your answer. And the main context behind asking this question is, you all know, just 1 month before there was huge controversy saying WHO is acting on behalf of China, and it is China that is influencing it. And the main reason they gave, or justification US gave, is that WHO declared coronavirus as an international public health emergency quite late, instead of doing it much before, like it did it around January 30 or in the February first week. So because of this, it became a very important topic. So we need to know what are the conditions on which WHO will declare a disease as a public health emergency of international response. And we also need to see how many times till now it was declared. That also we need to see. And what is the impact? So part of that, this is one aspect of the question. So if you have marked the answer, so here, if you can see, the first and second statements make some sense, because it is saying you are declaring it as public health emergency of international response. That is, the word itself says that means whenever the disease is a threat to many countries, then you can declare it, because only then you will treat it as international thing. So that is why the first statement is correct. Second one, for any disease of international scale, you obviously need coordinated response, because only one country cannot stop this disease like coronavirus. So you have to have international coordination. That's why the first and second are correct. However, the third statement, if you see, it is saying potential to impact least developed countries' healthcare system and life significantly. It doesn't make sense, because it doesn't, WHO or any organization doesn't differentiate in disease affecting least developed, developing, or developed countries. So that's why the third statement is wrong here, and the 1 and 2 are correct. So the answer is A. Now we'll see this in detail. International health regulations. So that is also important from this this point of view. And yeah, these are some technical terms. I thought like these are very relevant, and there might be a question in prelims also on this. You need to know and understand these words in detail. So that's why I've mentioned this in the slide. So like if you see, the first stage of any disease is outbreak. So first an outbreak happens, then then it usually get converts into endemic, and then it forms into an epidemic, and final stage is pandemic. So how it will go, we'll see. So first thing, outbreak. So outbreak is basically if it is greater than like uh, first of all, we'll see first what is endemic meaning. Then it will be better or easier for us to understand outbreak. Endemic means it is localized. It is particular to one certain region or state or district. For example, if you remember, we have discussed about uh, monkey fever disease, and I said it was endemic to Karnataka, that to Karnataka forest. So that means that disease doesn't happen anywhere other than that area. So then you call that disease as endemic. Or you can see endemic species. That means they are only found in that area. So similarly, if a disease happens in only certain area, then you call it as endemic. As I said here also, it is something that belongs to particular people or particular country or region. For example, if you see dengue fever is not something that happens worldwide. It happens mainly in Africa, Asia, America, and Caribbean, not in Europe and North America, because they don't have much these kind of mosquitoes which transmit this. So that is why it is endemic to tropical areas basically. Then outbreak. Outbreak is something you are unable to control and it is rapidly spreading, uh, but in that area itself. So then you call it as outbreak. For example, the Nipah virus was an outbreak. So that is outbreak. And then you have epidemic. The next stage of outbreak is epidemic. Like if an outbreak can be still controlled, for example, Nipah virus was controlled, but if you are unable to control it and then it quickly spread to other areas as well, and it is putting a lot of strain on the health infrastructure, then you call it as epidemic. As you said, epidemic is disease that affects large number of people within a community or population and region. Like for example, even the local transmission happens and it spreads and you can't able to trace the transmission, then you can call as epidemic. And then when epidemic becomes a pandemic, it is when it goes to multiple countries, or at least one country of each continent. When it spreads to multiple continents like Asia, Africa, Europe, America, if it spreads to everywhere, then it is pandemic. It's easy to remember. Like in pandemic, P is there. That means passport. So if it is spreading with the to the countries by a passport, then that means the disease has become a pandemic. So if it is restricted to one area, but it is out of the control, then it is epidemic. If it is only to one region, particular to one region, then it is endemic. So outbreak is something above endemic and below epidemic. So this is the classification of diseases. So as I said, it has recently announced this Wuhan coronavirus as public health emergency of international response. So the main impact will be like whenever you discover a disease, if you announce that as a public health emergency as soon as possible, you can arrest the spread of the disease that much better. And you can also try for going vaccines much earlier than that. For example, we all know this coronavirus was discovered in China around December. But however, it took 1.5 months almost for WHO to declare. So by that time, the international flights were there, travel were there, adversaries were not issued. So it got spread to all the parts of globe. So that is one impact how it had. So that's why it is very important. So as you can see, this public health emergency of international response or international concern is basically defined in this international health regulations. And the definition is that an extraordinary event which is determined to constitute public health risk to other states by international spread of disease, first thing. Second one, require a coordinated international response. As I said, if it is going to spread to many countries, or if it requires the international coordinated response, then you can declare it as public health emergency. And then the impact, what the impact will have to have. If you declare it as public health emergency, then it will lead to more awareness and you will have more public health measures. And similarly, the funding will be improved for the health infrastructure. And then you can start researching on the vaccines if you feel it is as a deadly disease. So this is a kind of things you can do. And another thing, countries can impose trade and travel restrictions. For example, if you know, like from February 20, that is from before the lockdown, We have announced international travel ban. So this is something that we can do much early when WHO declares it as public health emergency. So that is a impact or importance. And so far, if we see, we have declared, or WHO has declared diseases 5 times as global emergencies. Like the first one started with 2019 swine flu, and then 2014 polio, because there was a sudden spike in polio, and then in 2016 Zika virus. This we have already discussed in the class. So this is a kind of important disease that not because of Indian outbreak, but it mainly happened in the Latin Americas. And then you have Ebola in 2014 once, that was deadly outbreak, and then in 2019 there was again a resurgence, but however it was controlled in Africa itself. So these are the 5 times. And then recently you had the coronavirus declared as public health emergency. So that was the 6th time. And just a small thing about international health regulations. So these health regulations are basically a binding international legal agreement. Like what happens is, if you have any outbreak in your country, then it is your responsibility according to this regulation to inform the WHO and to provide them with all the information and to contain it, or to take measures that it shouldn't spread to other countries. So these are some of the binding commitments according to the. So now we'll see union budget. So we have completed the economic survey and the disease. So consider the following statements with respect to union budget 2020-21. So first one, Article 112 of the Constitution provides for laying down of the statement of estimated expenditure of the government of India only before Parliament in respect of every financial year, that is 1st April to 31st March. Second one, Budget 2021 is woven around 4 prominent themes, that are aspirational India, economic development, caring society, and blue economy. And third one, Ministry of Railways to start Krishi UDAN for transport of perishable goods on national and regional routes. So here as well, like you need to know a bit about union budget, the basic framework, concept, and then like what are the themes. So here if you see the trap in the first statement is, I said it is only for expenditure. But if you see in a budget, both revenue and expenditure both are presented. So that is why the first statement is wrong. So it is about the statement, annual financial statement deals with both annual revenue and annual expenditure. And it is presented both in parliament, like both houses. It can be presented in both houses. So that's why the first statement is wrong, because of that word. And second one, if you have seen the budget, at least highlights, it is only on 3 themes, that is aspirational India, economic development, and caring society. There is no blue economy. So this is again a trap. So second one is also wrong. And then finally, I'm saying Udan. Udan, if you have remember, it is about airports and civil aviation. So why Ministry of Railways will be there? Ministry of Railways is with Kisan Rails. So Kisan Rails is the concept. So that's why even the third statement is wrong. So all the statements are wrong here. The answer is D. So now we'll see this in detail, like highlights of budget. So a little bit facts about this. Like you all know, this was the second, Nirmala Sitharaman is the only second woman in the history of India to present the union budget. Like earlier, it was presented by Indira Gandhi, but at that time she was only holding PM and finance portfolio. That was temporary. But as if you see as an permanent position of finance minister, then Nirmala Sitharaman is the first woman finance minister to present the budget. Second thing, unique thing is, like usually we present it in the form of carry the economic files in the form of a briefcase. But first time she departed and she went into an traditional custom of they call it as Bahi Khata. So this is not to remember, but just know these facts. These are something that happened for the first time. That's why I'm covering this as well. Then the budget is nothing but annual financial statement. And the constitutional article that provides for this budget is Article 1112. Okay, 112. And the 3 themes, the main themes of the budget this year are aspirational India, economic development, and caring society. So in aspirational India, Basically we are trying to improve ease of living, like how we did for ease of doing business. So basically the better standards of living with covering all education, health and jobs, that is employment. And then you have economic development. Here basically in the economic development, prime minister is talking about inclusive development, that is by sabka saath, sabka vikas and sabka vishwas. These are the traditional famous dialogues. So here he is trying to make the economic development more inclusive by focusing on rural sector, agriculture, in agriculture also fisheries sector. So these are the sectors that are covered under this theme. And then you have third theme, that is caring society. So caring society is something about social development, like for example persons with disabilities, or old age people, or with certain vulnerabilities, say CST communities, so programs for them. So these comes under caring society. So basically they didn't do anything new, they segregated the existing schemes under these three headings. So this is something we have to remember. So these are the three components under which they have reformulated the existing schemes and introduced some new ones. So we'll see the schemes also under these three themes. So that will be, it will be easy for us also to remember. So first one, as I said, aspirational India. So here I've covered aspirational India is about improving the better standards of living in terms of per capita income, in terms of accessing the services and all. So here if you see an agriculture sector, and one more thing, kindly note that I'm not covering existing schemes. I'm only covering here the new schemes that are introduced in this budget. So that's why there are very less in agriculture. But if you see the budget document, there are many. Okay. So if you see the new schemes in agriculture, the first time they have kept a target to increase the fish production to up to 200 lakh tons, that by 2023. And second thing, railways is introducing Kisan Rail. Okay, in Kisan Rail they will have an cold storage system where they can transfer the perishable goods. So that way they want to give like ease of access for farmers to the markets. So that is first thing. Next thing, similarly we have Udan for passenger transport. Now civil aviation is trying to implement Kisan Udan, that is to use planes for agriculture cargo. So to transport the produce in terms of northeast, like in reaching to the northeast or northeast produce, if there is any horticulture produce, to reach it to the mainland markets, we are going to use civil aviation. So that is that. And then you have wellness, water and sanitation. So in this they have launched a new movement called Fit India movement. Okay, to basically to fight these non-communicable diseases like heart diseases and lifestyle oriented diseases. So that's why you would have seen there are many things before corona they have done in Fit India scheme. And similarly they are putting more focus on sanitation, like you all know Jal Jeevan Mission and Jal ministry. One ministry was formulated by amalgamating various other ministries. So that is scheme under that. And then you have education sector. So in education sector, for the first time they are saying that graduates can have internship opportunities with the urban local bodies, like engineering graduates can go and do intern for 6 months with GHMC like bodies. So that is first important scheme. And then you have INSAT exam. So this is something to attract Asian and African countries to study in India. So to get better rank for Indian universities in the world rankings. That is second thing. And then finally, budget is proposing for the first time National Police University and National Forensic Science University for the first time. And then budget is also saying every district we will have a medical college to increase the number of doctors and to increase the number of seats. That too by associating it with the hospital and to construct them in a public private partnership model. So to expand public private partnership model to the medical colleges as well. So these are the educational sector aspirational India reforms or initiatives that were launched in budget. So now we'll see the theme 2, that is economic development. In this the important initiative is National Technical Textiles Mission. So this is important. Technical textiles is different from normal textiles. We have further slides where we will discuss this in detail. So this was something that was launched by budget. Next thing, we have already discussed about national infrastructure pipeline. So they are going to implement that, where they are going to put more money, like about 112 crores, lakh crores in infrastructure development. And then you have Indian Railways. So here also they are going for more electrification and signaling system investment in railways. And then finally in the energy sector, they are going to start this prepaid smart meters, where they are going to expand this to cover the losses of distribution companies. If you know, right now all the distribution companies are in losses. So to avoid them, they have introduced schemes like Uday and all, but they are not working. So one of the solution they are proposing is this prepaid smart meter, where you will first have to pay, like you do recharge for your phone. So that is prepaid smart, and you can control this loss of transmission and distribution losses also. Like if there is any cheating or if there is any illegal stealing of electricity, that can be controlled. So that is a major initiative. And then you have construction of data center parks. This is also very, very important initiative. You all would have heard about this data as new oil or data localization scheme. So to make sure that works in India, they are building new data center parks, because we don't have very good data servers in India where you can store large amounts of data. So to enable that ecosystem, government is trying to build data center parks by giving incentives to private sector. And then finally, National Mission on Quantum Technology and Applications. This is also something we have already covered, but here also they have allocated for 8,000 crores for 5 years. So this is something they're trying to go for the next stage technologies. This is in economic development. Then you have caring society. So here they are again they shown the success of Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao, and they said they will implement it in more districts and with a larger allocation of amount. And then you have greater amount allocated to nutrition related programs like midday meal and all. And finally, SC, STs, OBCs, these are just a scheme amount. There is nothing much to remember here, but they have provided good amount of money allocation for these persons with disabilities and vulnerable communities. And these are the other initiatives. For example, they are going to constitute Indian Institute of Heritage and Conservation as a deemed university to promote art and culture conservation. So this is something like National Police University and Forensic University. They're trying to do this. And another very, very important initiative from Ministry of Tourism and Art and Culture is to develop the 5 archaeological sites. You all know, like there are some archaeological sites related to Indus Valley civilization and some of them in the South India. So these are the 5: Rakigari, Hastinapur, Shivasagar, Dolaveria, Adichanallur. Kindly do research on these 5 and know what is the unique importance of these sites. If government is proposing to revive these 5 sites, then definitely there will be question on any one of them, or even 5 of them in UPSC prelims, because UPSC will focus on the events or initiatives that are there in news. That means there is very significant historical importance to these sites. So kindly research more on them. And then finally, there is an important initiative called taxpayer charter. Like how we have citizens charter, they are now going to introduce taxpayer charter, where there are certain rights, certain duties will be listed for a taxpayer, like how we can approach if there is any case, and faceless tax assessment. All of these are being part of taxpayer charter. So they are going to make tax paying as a less burden and less compliant system. And then finally, the tax slabs. So for the first time, finance minister has introduced 2 systems, like direct tax slabs, or you can avail certain exemptions. So there are 2 systems: either you go avail the exemptions and pay less tax, or directly say if you are falling between 7.5 to 10 or 5 to 7.5, if you are falling in that bracket, then you will have direct a tax bracket range that is less. So either if you adopt this or that, but only problem is if you choose one, you cannot go back to the other. That is the only controversy. So these are the important initiatives that were announced in this year budget. So that is it about budget and economic survey. Now we'll see this National Technical Textiles Mission. This is also very important. That's why I've covered this in separate slide. So first option, it is an initiative to boost indigenous technical textiles ecosystem in India under Ministry of Science and Technology. Okay. Second one, technical textiles are defined as textile material and products manufactured primarily for their technical performance and functional properties rather than aesthetic and decorative characteristics. Okay. Third one, the time period for this mission implementation is from 2020 to 2024. Okay. Just, yeah, once again see these statements. I know these are again very tricky and you need to know perfect details of this mission. Only then you will be able to answer this. But still, try. If you had already read, then very good. So here, first thing you have to remember, in the first statement I have kept an deliberate trap by saying technical. So I've associated with Ministry of Science and Technology, but unfortunately it is not. It is not associated with Ministry of Science and Technology, but it is under Ministry of Textiles. Okay, so the first statement is wrong. So don't always think or guess because it is technical, so it will fall under science and technology. So to make you more aware of these kind of traps, I'm doing these kind of statements. And second one, this is absolutely correct. Basically, technical textiles are something like they are used for technical and functional purposes. Like I will give you one example. For example, like have you seen an thread-like structure on aircraft carrier to arrest the aircrafts when they are landing? Because you know that aircrafts come with a great speed, and you have very less size in the aircraft carrier to make them land. So they will use certain catapult where it will have certain rope. So that is basically for strength. So that can pull any number of tons of weight. So that is for strength. So there you are using the textile for strength. So if you use it for certain characteristics, then you would call them as technical textiles. Similarly, you use certain ropes in space also to perform certain functions. So these are specifically for strength, flexibility. So these kind of functions, if they are, then you call as technical textiles. Similarly, even in biomedicals, like for example, for surgery, there are certain specific textiles that are used, fibers are used for stitching because you normally can't use the cotton one. So that is the importance of these technical textiles. So there are n number of applications, right from health to agriculture, space, and all. So that is why it's a growing industry. We all know we are already strong in normal textiles. So that's why government aim is to also become a leader in this technical textile. And second thing, right now, 70% of India's imports of technical textiles comes from China and other countries. So to avoid that, we have formulated this mission. So that's why the second statement is correct. The normal textile usually focus on like clothing where you have aesthetic and decorative things. Okay, so that is the difference. And third statement is also correct. It is about 2021 to or 2020 to 24. It is basically, remember it with NDA time. Okay, once the BJP government goes, this mission is gone. So it is basically 2 and 3. Now we'll see in this detail. So the same thing, as I said, it is basically to give a thirst of wide variety of textiles like healthcare, infrastructure, automobiles, defense, and agriculture. And to position India as global leader, this also we have discussed. And this one, like right now we are importing about 16 billion every year. So to convert that, we have done this. And technical textiles are functional fabrics that have applications across various industries. And like 12 technical textile segments are identified, like agrotech, mediatech, build tech, all this. And there is an example also here, like the one which you use for the seat belts or airbags, all of these are technical textiles. Okay, and it has four components. These are very important, so we'll see. First component deals with research, development, and innovation. Okay, first is research, development, and innovation, and it is allocated 1000 crores. And research will be at both fiber level and application level, so like application and fiber level. And then finally, development of indigenous machinery will be focused for research area. Second component will be on the promotion and development of the market. So second is marketing. Basically, remember it as marketing. So once you have researched and developed a product, then you need to have a market. So in India itself, they'll try to promote the market. And third component is for exports promotion. So now if you want to become a global leader, then you need to have a significant market share in the globe. So that's why you will promote market share in the globe. That is exports promotion with certain amount and all. And then finally, fourth component is about education, training, and skill development. Because we have more skill in normal textiles, not in technical textiles. And you need to have greater skill force or labor force in technical textiles. So that's why skill training and education. So four components. Remember this way. First, for a textile, you need basic thing is research and development. Second, marketing in domestic. Third, exports promotion. Fourth one, to sustain that you need skill training. So this way, four components they are focusing. And then sixth one, consider the following statement with respect to new mascot of National Games 2020. Okay, so first one, the new mascot announced was flame-throated Bulbul. Second one, it is endemic to Western Ghats only. Third one, it is state bird of Goa. I know this is very like difficult question because it is somewhere in the margins of the news. It is not that highlighted, but it is very important, trust me. Because whenever there is any significant games that happen in India, then there might be a question. So you need to know what is the mascot and what is the importance of that animal. So here I've kept all the three statements as correct. So it is the name of that mascot is flame-throated bulbul, and it is found only in Western Ghats. That is right from Maharashtra to Kerala, including Tamil Nadu. And it is an state bird of Goa. So all the statements are correct here. So the answer is A. So this flame-throated bulbul is also called regionally as rubicula. Okay, I'll show you first the picture. So this is that bird. So you can see here, it is called flame-throated because its throat is like that. Can you see that specific color, red color? So that's why it is called as flame-throated. So this way, whenever you even learn or read about any bird or anything special, try to see the image so that immediately you will be able to connect and remember in the mind. If not, it will be very difficult to know about that. So that is flame-throated bulbul. So it is basically in Rubigula and state bird of Goa, and now it has been chosen as mascot of national games that are actually planned to be held in this September to November, but we don't know the status. And this is endemic to Western Ghats and Southern Peninsular India. And like the IUCN status is least concern. There is not much impact of this, like it is not endangered or something. And in Wildlife Protection Act, it is in Schedule 4. That means it has least protection. It is protected, but it's not that of high priority. So as we have discussed this India's Wildlife Protection Act here, so I've mentioned some importance of schedules also. Like if you see Schedule 1 and Part 2 of Schedule 2, both provide absolute protection. Like if you commit any or if you kill any bird, then the penalties will be highest. The main species like tiger, elephant, or threatened species all fall under the Schedule 1 and Part 2 of Schedule 2. Okay, even the Great Indian Bustard, all of this fall under this category. Then you have second list, that is Schedule 3 and Schedule 4. These are also protected, but the penalties are not that much high. They are very less, and it is not that strict in terms of not enforcement, but in terms of fine and punishment. Okay, and then finally you have Schedule 5. This covers basically the animals which can be hunted on a specific permission. Okay, and you can also have vermin species here. If you have heard in the recent news, there is an talk about vermin. Vermin is something species which are in large number and that are damaging the human population or ecosystem. For example, rats. Rats is a vermin species. Or crows are sometimes considered as vermin species. So you can get permission and kill them if they are threatening the ecosystem or human habitation. And then you finally have Schedule 6. This is also important. Schedule 6 deals with plants. Okay, about cultivation and protection for and certain threatened plants. So always remember, Schedule 1 to Schedule 5 are animals, Schedule 6 is plants. And in that also Schedule 1 and Part 2 of Schedule 2 are high protection. And then Schedule 3, Schedule 4 of same level. And then finally Schedule 5 is vermin where you can hunt. This is very important. Like they will give the species and they say these are part of Schedule 5, whether they can be hunted or not. So you need to able to identify. So that is about Indian Wildlife Protection Act. And seventh one, consider the following statements with respect to International Maritime Organization. International Maritime Organization is an international body independent of UN that regulates international shipping. First statement. Second one, the IMO is not responsible for enforcing its policies. There is no enforcement mechanism to implement the policies of IMO. Third one, IMO is headquartered at Brussels, Belgium. Yes, this is also again difficult question, like complete fact based. If you know, you can mark it, or you need to know at least one fact among them to mark the correct answer. First statement is absolutely wrong here because IMO is an UN body. It is not an independent of UN. So basically, it is an UN body, but there is another organization called International Shipping Organization. So that is an independent body. So every time you need to know what is part of UN, what is not part of UN. Yesterday or day before yesterday, we have talked about International Civil Aviation Organization. So that also I said it's a UN body. So but it enforces or it tries to implement the Chicago Convention. So similarly in the shipping, you have Maritime Organization. And second thing, Maritime Organization doesn't deal with these things like standards of shipping or something like civil aviation. It basically talks about uh, safety and regulation of environment protection of pollution of water with respect to ships. That is International Maritime Organization. Whereas shipping organization deals with other responsibilities. This also you need to know the difference between shipping organization and International Maritime Organization. And the second one is correct. It doesn't have power to enforce any policies. The policies will be enforced only when countries sign to conventions. So every time IMO formulates a policy, then that the policy is converted to convention, and when that country sign that, then it will be legally binding. So IMO as such doesn't have, but it tries to regulate it. And the permanent headquarters is in London. That is again important. This is one of the UN body that is headquartered in UN. Sorry, in London, because majority of them in either in Geneva or in New York. Yesterday also I've said that ICAO is headquartered at. Do you remember? It is in Montreal, Canada. Okay. Whenever there is distinctive city, try to remember. Civil aviation is located in headquartered at Montreal, Canada, whereas maritime in London. So you can like associate maritime with British power, because British is maritimely very important and significant. They have this influence to keep the secretariat in London. So that's why the third statement is also correct. So here it is 2 and 3 as a, sorry, 2 only is the correct answer. That is A. So the context for International Maritime Organization question is, first of all, for the first time they've listed that India is one among the 10 states with the larger interest in international seaborne trade, because we have about 70% of our energy imports and about 80% of our goods and services are done through sea. So that's why we are one of the countries very much interested in maintaining this law, rule of law, and this rules based order and all. And that's why we say of Indo-Pacific and all. So that is one thing. Second thing, what happened in this February month, this IMO has come up with a new law making that ships shouldn't burn fuel with sulfur content more than 0.5%. That too starting from January 1st. And unfortunately, till now, right now, the current status is 3.5% as the limit. That means ships can burn fuel which has sulfur content up to 3.5%. And suddenly IMO said you have to reduce it to 0.5%. So it is possible, is it feasible to have such kind of drastic reduction? And the main impact is on India, because there are many Indian ships or the ships that transport Indian cargo where they have to undergo complete refitting or they have to transform their engines. So that will have huge economic cost, and also the logistics cost for India will increase. Unfortunately, India was not present at that time when this decision was made. So that's why this was in news. India was a member. India has a representative that needs to be there in London. But unfortunately, from last 25 years, no one was appointed. So that's why we didn't had any control while the rule was framed. And once rule was being implemented, then we had the problem. So that's why this controversy was there. Like what India was doing while the rule was framing, and why is India not defending its interests? And India being the largest, one of the 10 states that having significant interest, still it is not doing enough. So these questions came. That's why we need to know more about IMO. So as I said, it is established in 1948 and started operations mainly from 1959, and the headquarters is London. And the main function or responsibility is to safety and security of international shipping. And the second important function is to prevent pollution from ships. So environment pollution related to ships and safety and security of this international shipping is the responsibility of International Maritime Organization. And next thing, even though it is involved in legal matters, liability and compensation, everything will be handled by this, but there is no enforcement mechanism. As I said, the policies can be enforced only when they are converted into conventions. One of the example is with related to pollution, International Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships, that is MARPOL. So kindly remember this convention. This is very, very important. MARPOL convention is constantly in news. So MARPOL is something that is under IMO. Okay. In this only the sulfur oxides are, they are trying to limit the sulfur oxide emissions from ships. This is where I said from 3.5%, IMO is asking to reduce the sulfur oxide to 0.5% from January 1st, 2020. So this is the one. And then you have high risk areas as the another issue. So this high risk area is basically IMO, that International Maritime Organization, designates certain areas high risk area when there is so much of piracy. piracy or threats or even terrorism, so these kind of things are there, then you designate it as high risk. So unfortunately what it did, it designated Western Indian Ocean as high risk area. So what the problem now? So once you designate this area as high risk area, then ships have to get insurance, and that insurance costs will increase. So if you get the insurance costs increased, the logistics cost will also increase. So it will have impact on the trade that is coming to India through Mumbai and other western ports. So that's why India is opposing this high risk area concept, because it is saying in Western Indian Ocean already Indian Navy is in control and you don't have much piracy. Instead it is around the Somalia and in the West Asia. So that is Indian stand. And another problem is with respect to NAVIC. We have the GPS system called NAVIC, right? So, but it is also India's responsibility to ensure NAVIC is implemented in all the ships. So here also there is a problem. And then finally, bunker convention. So bunker convention talks about civil liability for bunker oil pollution damage. Okay. So this is about if there is any oil pollution, then that ship, how much ship has to pay the damage to the country or to the international organization, or how to remedy it. These kind of things will be covered under this. And in this also, India is right now not a signatory. I mean, India signed but didn't ratify. India is waiting because it has certain problems here as well. Okay. And then finally, zero coalition. This is again very important. So zero coalition means zero emissions is the target. They want zero carbon dioxide or zero emissions from ships by 2030. So as part of climate change measures, they also want to implement these kind of measures. So this is zero coalition, one thing. And then finally, the last topic for today is Project 75. Very brief outline. So this is an like we have seen Rafale, right? Rafale is something we are buying aircraft from France and recently flown. Similarly, we have a Navy cooperation also with France, where we are using French company technology transfer to build Scorpion class submarines in India. So the project is called Project 75. Under this, 6 Scorpion class submarines are being built in India with the technology transfer from French company. So in this, this is going to be completed by 2022, and 6 submarines are being constructed. You need to know the names also: Kalvari, Kanderi, Karanch, Vela, Vagiran, Vakshir. Okay, these are the 6 submarines. Out of this, the first 3 are completed, and the last 3 are being in the construction process. And out of this 6, first 4, that is Kalveri, Kanderi, Karanj and Vela, are normal Scorpion class submarines. Vagir and Vakshir have air independent propulsion system. So now what is air independent propulsion system? Usually for a submarine, after every few hours, you have to come up to the sea to take the oxygen back, so that the oxygen level will be there for the crew. If not, they will not have certain oxygen. But because of this system, you can stay for long under sea. So that is the importance of air independent propulsion system, and to adjust the pressure systems and all. So this is another important thing that can enable more operation of submarines and secrecy. So that's why this is important. So now, having discussed this, in defense side, you also have to see about aircraft carrier project, second one we are constructing, and arrested landing concepts like electromagnetic aircraft launch system. This is something we are in talks with US to get it into our second aircraft carrier. So kindly know the name and research more about that.